A full review of a Volvo V90 in a more affordable way. Exterior, interior and the driving experience. That's today on Autogefuehl, your #1 resource for in-depth car reviews and your #1 community to discuss cars. Today with Thomas. So we have presented you the R design, the inscription, the top trim levels, full packed, big engines. This one here today, if maybe private customer, want a more affordable V90, or maybe you can order one at your company, or you are a fleet manager and have to keep the cost down, then we will tell you everything about it. Is it also possible to get, just a D3, the smallest diesel, and also with the Momentum, just a lower or middle trim level? Is it still possible with this vehicle? We'll find out together in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! So while the inscription top trim level has those vertical chrome fins, the R design has this dot design. Here a normal V90 has also vertical fins, but here in this case then in black. Overall for sure a very beautiful appearance. Upper mid-size segment. Thor's hammer, LED daytime running lights, and in this case also the full LED headlights. Those ones are optional. If you want to save some money, then you just go with the standard headlights. We have shown you the turning indicators, by the way, on the place of the LED daytime running lights called Thor's hammer, because with the turning indicators they do not flicker on camera. The daytime running light does. It depends really. Some brands have matched the frame rate of their daytime running lights now, meanwhile, to fit it actually to modern camera needs. Because often people ask, hey, why is it flickering? Something wrong with the car? And the manufacturers have been reacting on that actually. It's not flickering for human eye, but for the camera, which is basically faster than the human eye. But now to the side profile here, 4,96 m or 16'3" is the total length of the Volvo V90. There's also the S90, which cost 1,500 euros less and is a sedan, then falling down. This one here, rather the, practical, versatile version. 17 to 22 inch rims. This is the wide range of rim sizes. Here 18 inch, and I think size-wise definitely enough from the visual aspect. Also this color, luminous sand, it looks really spectacular. I think it fits the vehicle. It wouldn't be my personal color pick, but I think it looks very elegant on this vehicle. By the way, you can have this keyless entry. You just reach out for the door handles, and also the side mirrors flip up. It's not this, classic cube style, which we know from older Volvo estates. You still have enough space on the inside, not as much as, with the very old cube style estates, but still okay. And you have this design line on the just above the door handles right there. Overall, a very beautiful design here, also with, chrome style roof rail right there. And also in this case here, Momentum trim level still, chrome style frames around the windows. What do you think about design? Tell me in the comments. Now to the rear, very characteristic for the Volvo estates and also for the SUV, those vertical taillights. Here with the new models, they have also this horizontal line right there to round even a little bit up and to make the car a little bit wider in the appearance. You see you lose a little bit of height here. This is also for design purposes, but most of the luggage inside, will soon show you, will still fit. Interesting also that they still have real exhaust pipes, actually with a nice chrome tip at the very end. Now let's get inside. Again, solid door handles. The only thing that can be irritating when you have the thumb right here and then open the door, something can happen that you basically close and open the door at the same time. So you have to get used to that you just pull it right here like this. Then inside of the doors, this is here some aluminum style, very well done. And above that, it's also softened up a little bit. And I like the structure they are using because it doesn't look like just plain plastic. It has this interesting structure inside, which makes it a little bit worthier. Then also here, those galvanized handles, memory seat function available. This again also an extra option. You could also leave out to save some money. Also the Bowers & Wilkins sound system. You could leave out that one. 3,500 euros, really extra in the price. So yes, they have put some more extras in this test vehicle. You know, it was the cheapest one we can get from Volvo, but still. Then seats in the kinetic base trim, they come with fabric. I would recommend that. In the Momentum, as we have here, they come then with animal skin, but you can go back. You can switch the fabric again, which is better. You know, it's colder in summer and warmer in winter than if you have the fabric option. In the higher trim, only solution would be the R design. You also have R design entry caps here, normal Volvo entry cover. In the R design, you then get animal skin on the outside and microfiber on the inside, which would still be a reasonable option. The steering wheel is compact. It's not too big. This is basically the only thing that I'm not too fond of in the new 90 models. Because the buttons at the steering wheel and also this middle part, the airbag cover, it doesn't look as classy as the rest of the interior somehow, I think. You also have digital instruments. I can move the steering wheel down, you can see it better. So all digital right there, 12.3. And in the middle part you have a screen. You can also turn on the engine, that you can see more. Then you have the speed on the left. The right side then is the RPM. In the middle part, for example, you see at the moment that I do not wear any seat belt holders. So consumption would be in the lower right, at the moment 6.2 liters, and that's quite reasonable. So that could also be a reason to go for this smaller diesel here, that you have the lowest consumption possible, because in general consumption for the Volvo engine is usually very high. Seating position, the Volvo seats from the form are usually very well executed. I mean, it might also depend on a certain body, but at least for me, they're really very perfect also for long-term driving. I think I never experienced any Volvo where I did experience some lower back pain or something like that. And it's not only, I mean, I also have a lumbar support here, but I usually don't use lumbar support. Some do, some don't. I usually don't need it, and it doesn't help me. The seat itself has to be good, and it is definitely right here. You have a normal upper mid-size segment seating position. It's not super sporty, but also not SUV-ish. It's a little bit different when you are in the cross country. We have recently shown you that. Sit a little bit higher. Headroom, I'm 1.86 m or 6'1", and that's pretty close here. So you shouldn't be, way taller. However, you still have the possibility, this one here is equipped with a panoramic roof. If you don't have the panoramic roof, then you have a little bit more headroom there. So remember that. If you're really tall, leave out the panoramic roof, then it should still fit. Nice Scandinavian style here, also again with this structure on the dashboard, also softened up. Overlapping here a little bit, also, to give maybe a little bit of shadow to the touchscreen. 6.5 or 9-inch are available. This one here, the bigger one, a 9-inch, and more in a vertical scheme. Soon more details to that. One thing, just initially you control everything with a touchscreen. Just some buttons left here in a crystal style for the volume or play. Mandatory buttons like the warning triangle, but that's basically it. Everything else here with the touchscreen then. Steering wheel, I talked about that earlier. You can also move that, by the way, in and out and up and down. So very well adjustable overall. And today also with a manual gearbox, 6-speed manual, then with this shifting stick. Otherwise, you also would have a lever which you just move front and back. You can check that one out in our other reviews. Nice aluminum look structure here too, but you can also get a matte wood in the V90 that also looks fancy. Then the infotainment screen with those 4 different, app view, and you can go to the GPS from here, for example, make it a little bit bigger, then zoom in and out like a smartphone, for example. The live traffic info was missing for us in our test, and you see it could also be a little bit more responsive. Then you can always, like with the iPhone, click one button to get to the home menu, radio. You can connect your phone via Bluetooth, that is possible. Here, for example, audio information with the concert hall. It's great sound with the B&W sound system, but again, if you want to save money, you leave that out. Then scroll to the left, you get some, to the assistant systems, for example, and you can, for example, deactivate the lane keeping assist, which was sometimes a little bit annoying to us. Then on the right side, you can, for example, also connect the phone via Apple CarPlay or Android Auto when you plug it in. Then, and on the top part, if you want to go to the option settings, for example, when you want to change the language and stuff. The temperature is always here in the lower part, so you have to be aware of that, like this. And here, let me turn on the engine, I can show you then. Then you can choose the temperature like this, or hit plus and minus, or click here. So different possibilities. Again, you can argue, it's okay when you always leave it at 22 degrees and AC on, but when you're someone who wants to control temperature while driving, of course not the best solution. And the rear view camera, which is, basically in a good resolution. Just, that you have those edges here. Maybe they could find a better spot. However, you can also have different, here for example, 360 view. And then you can choose again if you just want to have the rear view camera, or maybe to the side, that you don't damage your wheels, or even to the front. So that's all possible. One neat feature is the frameless mirror. Looks very elegant and also offers you a great view to the rear. And just behind it, by the way, is this very thick IntelliSafe case where a lot of the sensor and assistant system stuff is hidden. And one thing that is very good is that the active city brake is always standard with every Volvo. Other assistant systems then optional. The glove box is quite slim, but it can be cooled at least. So it's a nice function, and you can activate and deactivate it. So the panoramic roof, there is a shade. I love that bright ceiling, by the way, so in the beige style. Then you can remove the first shade. It does take a while, but it goes all the way until the back, so especially the rear passengers have something from it. Again, this is here an option if you want to save money, bring the price of the car down, then it would also be something you could easily leave out. Then you can open it, get some more light in here. This is the maximum opening space. And again, you lose some headroom, of course. A very nice detail. It looks classy and also has a piece of history. 1959, this was when Volvo introduced the seat belts for standard vehicles on the road. Of course, massive innovation for safety. But the funny thing was that in the first years there were actually more people dying on the road, and the reason was not because seatbelts are not safe. On the contrary, because people thought, I got the seatbelt now, I drive faster with more risk, and then more people died. So this is how then this can also change fortunes. Very unlucky, interesting aspect of that, but of course on the long-term run, seatbelts have saved so many lives, you cannot even compare it. Then let's take a look at the front console. You have, well, I'm not even sure why they did that. It's like for coins or whatever. Then the middle part here, adaptive cup holders, 12-volt power supply, and you can close the whole stuff again. Then the drive mode selector, also in this crystal style, and you see the shiny black elements. They collect fingerprints and scratches, but so many manufacturers go for them meanwhile. I like the crystal style start engine stop. Also here, do you just turn that and then start the ignition, electric handbrake. Then this one here could be a little bit, it should be fitted like this, shouldn't it? For a perfect matching in the interior, but it's like this. Maybe they could rework that on a facelift. Then this is here fixed attached and some more space below that, for example, mobile phone. There are 2 USB ports, one for connecting your phone, Apple CarPlay and stuff, and the other one if you just want to charge it. It's also a clever solution that you have the choice actually. And one more very nice detail is this small Swedish flag. And best greetings for all our viewers from Sverige. Now the rear compartment. Here we go. You can get in quite easily. And then we have this manual shade for the kids. In general, well, the bench is quite short. Knee room is actually quite good. See, like this. I mean, it's a long car, so we do expect that. The head restraints you can fold up again. You have a little leaning back position, and you cannot really access, the angle of the rear seats. You can just fold them. You can also fold them from here, but as we showed you earlier, also from the trunk. So, I mean, it's really good for adults, no question. Headroom here in the rear. Again, there's the panoramic roof inbuilt. Not too much room. Also, again, for tall people, if you're even taller than me, then leave out the panoramic roof. Difference also here in the Estate. We have a little bit more headroom in the rear than with the sedan. That might also be, a relevant information. And I can show you again how to flip the seat from here. It's like this, and so it goes also very flat. It's quite an easy solution they have put there as well. And then there are some more features, because you can also change climate in here. It also has some cup holders, I would say. Come on over here. So next to the ISOFIX anchor points, you can also have this integrated child seat, depending on how old your children are. So this one here is just a little bit higher than if they do not need a separate child seat anymore. Then you can put it a little bit higher, even still with a second function, and put it backwards like this. So very clever solution they've put right here. You need some power though. And then you can also put it all the way down again. So this is also one of the reasons I would go for the fabric option for the whole vehicle. You see here, this is, the leather, how it looks already. And I mean, this is still a brand new car. Then the armrest with a secret case right there. And also magic cup holders, ta-da. Also adaptive with the rubber edges we have here. Then you can have option also the climate control for the rear seats. Again, this is something you could also basically leave out. And there's a 12-volt power supply underneath. As one standard climate vent is also right here, you can also open and close it. This is the key, and again, difference in the momentum trim level. We do not have the animal skin wrap as in the Inscription, and that's perfectly fine with me. Then the tailgate can open with a key fob, or also here like this. And you still have reasonable space. Here the cover flips up automatically together with the hatch, and also down again. We had some car where it doesn't, in the XC60 it didn't move down again on its own. It was pretty strange. Then here you can split the trunk actually. It's and you can also put something in here to secure something that it doesn't fall over. It's quite handy function for sure. You see, there's actually still plenty of space left. Top tether, there's a ski hatch available too. And then you can also flip the seats right there. Head restraints flip, and then, wow. That's really nice. So almost all flat. You can very well use that. And last but not least, wow, with hydraulic strut here. Wow, look at that. And some more space here underneath. And safety check of the rear hatch. Did they apply too much torque or is it okay? Yeah, I think something in between. So it's not too bad. Yeah, I think maybe it could be a little bit more responsive, but overall it's already quite okay. So, about engines, there it is. Oops, here. So here we go. So this one here, diesel, well, you cannot see much with the engine, but this one here is the D3, 150 horsepower only. Then there would also be a D4, 190 horsepower. There's a D5 with 235 horsepower, but the same as always, 2 liter of displacement, 4-cylinder engines. The same would be for the petrol engines, same displacement, same cylinder, just with a different horsepower output, 254 or 320 in the top T6, so it's T5 and T6. Here today with the D3, because we want to test, does it work with less horsepower? Does it work also with just front-wheel drive? Because the top diesel and the top petrol engine is always combined with automatic transmission and all-wheel drive. The other ones then optional, both of those choices. But here today, the basic you can get, entry diesel, front-wheel drive, manual hand drive. Very interesting to experience that. And also so far we always have driven the air suspension, the optional for the rear axle. Also today without it. So really excited how that one plays out. Let's start the driving part. And it has been quite a while since I've driven a Volvo with a manual gearbox. Especially not a Volvo 90, so S90, V90, whatever. So this is quite something here. But as I told you earlier, we picked this vehicle also to tell you, can you go with a manual gearbox? Can you also go with a smaller engine? And we're going to find out exactly that for you. Also, we don't have the air suspension here. So this is, another interesting thing, because so far with all the Volvo 90 reviews, we always had the air suspension in the rear. Remember, if you go for the optional air suspension here, you only get it in the rear. And the question is, does that make sense to go for the air suspension? First of all, to the manual gearbox. I mean, the gear shifting lever, it looks quite nice. You've seen it earlier. To shift the car, it also works very smoothly. So it's also very precise and somewhat also crisp in the shifting. So it is somewhat sporty. I do prefer automatic gearboxes just for comfort. But if you don't mind shifting, I think it's also a good experience. And well, the advantage is you somewhat feel more in control of the car with the manual gearbox. It's just another interface to the car. So if you prefer that, I think we could definitely say you can actually go for it. 6-speed manual. The other choice would be then, if you go for the automatic gearbox, an 8-speed automatic. Sound insulation is very good. At the moment we are driving 70 kilometers an hour. We can also bring the RPMs way down. For example, if we go to the 6th gear now, then we're just above 1000 RPM. And of course, you can also try to save some fuel then. It is definitely a very comfortable and silent ride. The seat form with the Volvo is very good. Steering wheel wise, it's rather soft to control. And for example, when you're in a corner, sometimes it tends to feel a little bit numb, especially in the first degree angles. So it is not the sportiest driving experience as for the steering feel. Also, the suspension is rather set to the comfortable run. You can, if you compare the other competitors in this segment here, upper mid-size segment, BMW 5 Series, Audi A6, Mercedes E-Class, then this one here from the driving feel rather comes close to an E-Class. The E-Class is also rather set, the normal E-Class on the comfortable side. And the BMW and the Audi are a little bit stiffer. They convey a little sportier feeling for sure. So that, that would be the approximate estimation. You can also change different driving modes. Eco would be more efficient drive, less throttle input. However, it makes more sense to combine that one, the driving modes, with the automatic gearbox, as then also the shifting characteristics change. You shift up later, you shift down earlier. And the same is with the dynamic mode, which I can put in. I feel I do have a little bit more throttle input, but again, as I have the manual hand drive here, this is the thing where I really control this vehicle, and the driving modes again more apply when you have the automatic gearbox, because other changes here, for example, steering wheel wise, I'm not sure if there's really a big difference. Yeah, I mean, steering wheel a little bit. For example, when I'm in the eco mode, it's really basically loose, and also you see you're like tilting a lot. And when I put it in the dynamic mode, the steering wheel is a little bit stiffer. But it's just, you have more resistance. It's not that it would become, in a sense, more direct from the steering ratio. It's just a little bit stiffer. But if you like that, you can use the sport mode and have a little stiffer steering wheel. Well, do we feel that the air suspension is missing? When the road is basically even, no. That's not a real difference. Oh, there's another Volvo 90. There's a V90 also facing us there. When you go in some slalom mode here, the air suspension is also rather soft. So it would be also basically the same. As we started our ride, there was a pothole, and I think we can feel the potholes a little bit harsher in the rear, at the rear axle, when we don't have the air suspension. So to me, that would be the main difference then. The question is again, does it justify the extra price? I would say, if you are driving on uneven roads a lot of the time, then it might make sense. And if you say, where you live, you have pretty good roads and they are rather even, and surely depends on the area, then maybe you can just say, I save the money and just go with the standard suspension. The standard suspension is also, in general fine. In the front, you have the same anyway, so it's really okay. For driving in the city and countryside, this engine here is also really enough and suitable. If you are on the motorway and maybe it's going uphill and you're at higher speed and then you're also in a higher gear, then you definitely do feel a difference that some horsepower is lacking. So again, this is also the question of, this is, by the way, it was the emergency warning, because there were some vehicles next to us. The car was expecting maybe I would run into those vehicles. So that sometimes happens with those systems, that it basically overreacts, because the vehicle cannot know. I know I'm steering in the corner around those vehicles, but for the system it looks like for a second I would be running into the vehicles. Then again, I think it's better when the system is active than it would be too passive in a way. So as long as you have a very calm ride, I think the engine power with the D3 is enough. And it is also basically a vehicle you ride rather calmly. You enjoy the silence of the good sound installation, the comfort of the seats and of the suspension, and it's really a very calming down vehicle. So in the upper mid-size segment, definitely not the sportiest choice. and I think that's also not what the customer expects here. That would be rather than from a BMW 5 Series, for example. This one you're really set on the comfortable run. And then I think you can also say you don't have to go for the biggest engine, and you have to remember it's not really a bigger engine. They all have the 2-liter displacement, 4 cylinders. So it won't make such a big difference engine-wise, and well, consumption-wise. You know, we have the experience that if you go for more displacement, you can often save fuel. For example, if you remember BMW 5 Series with a 6-cylinder inline 6 diesel, we were about 5 liters on 100 kilometers, which was pretty amazing. And we usually score higher figures with smaller engines. But here you only have those small engines as a choice. It's just that horsepower that is tuned up more. You do feel it, the acceleration is somewhat different. This one here, the figure just above 10 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour. That's for sure not, you know, not the fastest you could have or that you would expect. But I think you can really live with that. So it always depends on the very vehicle you're combining it with, and here I think it does work. So you know, the only instance I would rather not go for it, if you say I'm driving motorway a lot at high speeds, and I also have motorways which are going uphill sometimes, or you know, a major part of the way, and then I also want to accelerate, then you will miss some power. I mean, as it is a diesel, you also have enough torque basically, especially in the low power regions. I can show you that. For example, when I'm in the second gear now and I go for example from 30 kilometers an hour, I'm just waiting till the next berm that no one can come. So second gear, 30 kilometers an hour, and then just watch how fast these vehicles can still accelerate. So even a little bit uphill right now. So let's go. 50, 60, 70, and that was just second gear. It's of course not a sports car, but still for sure fast enough. Also then here in the third gear, you feel the car is, you know, still giving you some boost. For example, here now third gear, 70 to 80 we can also do, or we're at the moment at 65. Also the road is getting a little bit rougher now, again a good test for the suspension. So now uphill, third gear. Do we still have some power reserves? Yeah, the third gear it's still okay. Considering the rough road, still managing quite well. But this would be, you know, something where the rear air suspension could have some effect now. However, then again, I think if you put an air suspension for a vehicle, might it make more sense to go all the way, like front and rear axle, because that's, you know, a whole concept then. Of course, there's you know, the argument of cost savings when you just put it on one axle. But then again, if I trust in such a system, why not go for it for both axles? That would be my opinion. So probably if you want to have a good deal for this very vehicle, then you could also say, you know, leave out the air suspension, save some money. It is still fun to drive the vehicle, also with this engine. Also if the suspension is not the sportiest one, so that's still possible. You see it again here with the steering wheel. It's again not the most direct for sporty driving, but still, as I said, you can have fun driving this car. Also with the manual gearbox, it gives you a little bit more connection. Front wheel drive only, and in this case it also makes sense if you don't have so much horsepower on the front axle, it's totally okay. If you go for, you know, around over 200 somewhat horsepower, and then just have front wheel drive, then you can have those wheel spin situations where you have too much power on the front axle. But that's surely not happening here. You know, all-wheel drive is also optional for all of the engines that are available. think there's just one petrol engine which is just available with front-wheel drive. Do you really need it? That's again a question of how many snow, ice and so on situations do you have or not. In general, it also works with the front-wheel drive in dry situations and rural areas. Usually you don't necessarily need the all-wheel drive. So I can say it does work with the vehicle here with the setup we have ordered, and you can also score a more affordable Volvo V90. So I think that's definitely working, and as we always try, we always have those vehicles that are specced with so many features, and still the price was brought up due to some extras still. So we try to, when we have the possibility, also show you vehicles which are less in the spec, because they're more realistic to what people can buy. And I'm actually quite glad that this combination here does work. So quite narrow here too, but the vehicle still feels quite good, as the overview is also good. Good dimensions also, I can see where the car is ending, although it's already a big car. That's another positive aspect about it. So overall a good feeling for the car. And now narrow, but here again the very light steering wheel helps us to park the car in and out. So that's again something very helpful again when you have such a light steering wheel. And now to our conclusion for today, Volvo V90 as a D3 Momentum. The exterior styling, very nice. I think such an elegant style. Also in the interior, processing quality is also good in general. About the infotainment, well, some are really a fan of it, some aren't. I still like to have the possibility to do something with knobs. Also the infotainment software. I found some better solutions yet in the automotive industry. The offering of room in the interior is also very good. I think you can surely live with that. You still have a lot of space, even if it's not the same as in the very old Volvos, in the cube Volvos. Driving wise, all set on comfort. If you expect a very sporty ride in this segment, that's not the right car for you. If you more expect the full comfort, then you're perfectly fine. And the most interesting aspect of this review today was, of course, can you save money, also go for an affordable V90? I think yes. The entry-level engines do work. Also manual hand drive works, front-wheel drive works. Also it works not to go for the air suspension. This one here, taking German prices as a reference, starts just above 40,000 euros, and you can get a V90 for 80,000, which is, exaggerated in my opinion. This one here, as there were some extras in it, in the middle, between 40 and 80,000, I think a good one you can get for about 50,000 euros. So, go for kinetic or momentum, not put animal skin on the seats, leave out the panoramic roof, not go for all electronic systems that are available, leave out the biggest sound system, and I think then you can still get a very comfortable, a very good Volvo V90 without paying too much for it. So I hope you like this insight here for you today. If you're interested in this vehicle, there are other versions available. V90 cross-country, V90 in another engine and other colors, S90 R design, S90 other colors. So plenty of choices you have there if you want more decision helping for that. Of course, leave your comments to this vehicle in the comment section below, and see you at the next Autogefuehl episode.